Whenever I say I'm gonna make something that has leftover brisket, it always sounds absurd. Like, when is there leftover brisket? Well, look here. I have a pound of leftover brisket. It's been vacuum sealed and frozen for a couple months. And today I'm gonna turn this and some other ingredients into some brisket pot pie. So we're gonna head over to the stove and get our filling going. So I have my Dutch oven here over medium heat. A large pan like this really works well, I find. I'm gonna add a couple tablespoons of unsalted butter. Let that start to melt. Next up, 1 large clove of garlic that's been chopped. And let that start to just sort of soften up and release those flavors. We're not trying to brown this garlic. Now we're gonna add 2 stalks of celery that have had a pretty good chop on them. 3 small carrots that have been chopped. And the size of these are really up to you. It's kind of what you want the final texture to be in your pot pie. I like pieces to be a little bit larger. Now comes 1 red onion that's been just chopped up. That's a medium red onion. 1.5 cups of mushrooms. It's really whatever kind of mushroom you like. Now comes 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I'm gonna stir this in so we start getting some of that thickening roux built around these vegetables with that butter. There's gonna be some more fat released once we add our brisket pieces, and that's also gonna help thicken this. The brisket is a mixture of flat and point, but I think it's mostly point. Now comes our brisket, 1 pound of brisket pieces. Stir those in. And all of these don't have to soften right now because this is gonna be simmering for probably an hour to an hour and a half once we add our liquid components. That'll let everything reduce, thicken, soften, everything will get cooked. Now I'm gonna add potatoes, and I'm using 2 cups of small potatoes. You can see here the size these are. I just cut them in half. Now for our liquid components, we're gonna start with 2 cups of beef broth. We're also gonna add 1/2 cup of red wine. I'm using a Cabernet. It's a Paso Dragon Cabernet. Go ahead and stir this all up. I want to kind of push everybody down into that liquid. If we need to add more beef stock later, we can. We'll check this after about an hour to see how it's doing. Now comes 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. 1/2 tablespoon of dried thyme. A teaspoon of coarsely ground black pepper. And a teaspoon of kosher salt. Give this a mix. Now I'm gonna get my lid on and reduce my heat to low. And we're gonna let that simmer, like I said, for an hour to an hour and a half until it thickens up, reduces down a bit. Everything's nice and soft and cooked. About every 15 minutes or so, you want to remove the lid, give it a stir, and really try and get down there in the bottom and scrape any of those nice brown bits that fawned off the bottom of your pan. So I'll bring you back here in about an hour and we check to see if we need to add any more beef stock. So we've been going about an hour now. I've stirred it a few times. Let's take a look and see how our filling for our brisket pot pie is doing. That's looking good. I don't think we need to add any more liquid to this. Just want it to thicken a little more, reduce a little bit, but that is starting to look really good. That brisket, which is pre-cooked, it was smoked out on the smoker, that's starting to really tenderize. You can see bits of it starting to break up. So I want that to reduce a little bit more, thicken up a bit, so I'm gonna leave the lid off and let this go for probably another 20 or 30 minutes. And a lot of this really just depends upon conditions, your oven, your stove, anything that you're using here. You may have to adjust these times a bit. Really just look at it and see when it is as thick as you need it to be. So let this keep simmering and I'll bring you back in about half an hour. So we've been going another 30 minutes. Let's go ahead and check and see how we're looking. Got a nice little simmer going here. And I have stirred this a couple times. It's thickening nicely. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to turn it off, remove it from the heat, and we're gonna let this cool for, let's say, an hour and a half. I want this really to come down in temperature before we start adding it to our pie shell. I'm not gonna cover it, I'm just gonna leave it uncovered as it cools. That's also gonna help it thicken some more. And in about 90 minutes, we're gonna have a fantastic filling for our brisket pot pie. So, different shirt, different hat. It's not yesterday, it's actually the next day. That filling can be refrigerated and used the next day, and that's what I had to do. Something came up right as I was transitioning from that making the filling stage to building the pot pie stage. So, had to put it in the refrigerator, let it sit overnight. I took it out and I just sort of microwaved it for 1.5 minutes just to warm it back up a little bit. And now we're gonna start building our brisket pot pie. So I have my 9-inch pie pan here. This is a cast iron pie pan. I really love using these. And one of the things with crusts, and especially store-bought crust, which is what we're using today, we're not using a freshly made pie crust. A lot of times they'll tell you don't need to grease the pan because there's enough butter in there. In cast iron, I just like to add a little bit of extra butter in the bottom just to help it release, because these get really hot, they can give some great browning, but I do like to try and prevent that sticking that can happen. So I'm just gonna give it a really light coating of butter here, not a lot. That's all it needs. Now let's go ahead and get our bottom pie crust in here. And as I mentioned, this is a pre-made pie crust. You can get these at just about any supermarket. Really convenient to use. They taste great in this, but if you really want to go ahead and make your own pie dough, go ahead. I'm just going to get my crust in here, and we're just going to kind of let it gently fall down in. And I just want to give the edges a little press here so they go back against the rim, so that when we put our top crust on, there'll be something to make contact with. And do your best here. Mine is not perfectly centered, as you can see, but it's going to work great. Now I just want to take a fork and put some small holes in the bottom here. Just helps release any steam that develops on the bottom. Make sure you get good contact in those edges. Now our filling goes in. And if you have extra after you make this, this is really good beef stew. But we're going to try and get a good amount in here. Oh, and I also should mention, at this point, you should be preheating your oven to 425 degrees. And once we're all preheated and in the oven, we're gonna go for about a half an hour until our crust is nice and golden brown. Every oven is different, so you need to kind of look and see if it's getting that nice golden brown, and if maybe you're getting some bubbling of the filling through the crust. That's normal. In the oven, I like to put a pan on a rack below the pie pan to catch any drips that might happen. It sometimes happens, not all the time, but it's just a little bit of insurance against a messy oven. We're getting almost everything in here. I think we're gonna have maybe just a snack worth left. Now we're gonna get our top crust on here. What I wanna do, just go around the rim, press those two crusts together. And I'm just gonna go around the edge and trim off the excess. Some people use like an egg wash between the crusts on the edges there as like a glue. I don't find that always necessary, so I don't really do that. We're gonna do an egg wash on the top, but I find that it usually holds together pretty well. Now here, I just want to really go around the edges, and there's some of those little indentations on the rim, and I just want to press into those and get these edges connected very well. Now I'm not a pie baking expert, so if you're looking for one of those fancy edges, it's probably not going to be that, but this is going to taste good. And then I just like to go around and kind of pinch now. Just really try and make sure those edges come together. Again, you may get a little bit of spillage out of there as this bakes, but that's kind of normal. We will be putting some vents in the top to release any steam or bubbling, but you could get a little bit of leakage on the sides. That's not gonna hurt anything. All right, so now I wanna cut some triangle slits here. And all we're gonna do, probably 4. And then just make sure that that end That very end is maybe pushed down a little. Okay? Doesn't have to be a lot. We just want a place for any steam to escape and also for any of that bubbling pie filling. Maybe it'll come out here, gets on top. I just love when that happens, it gets nice and crispy. Now we're gonna give this an egg wash. I have an egg that I've beaten and we're just gonna give this a nice brushing that really helps develop that golden color, that crustiness on top. And I wanna try and get right to the edge on this. So brush outwards along that edge of our crust. All right, this is going into our 425-degree oven for approximately 30 minutes until it's golden brown, a little bit of bubbling. Again, every oven is different. You really have to keep your eye on it right around that 30-minute mark and just see how you're doing. Well, here is our pie, fresh out of the oven. It took 35 minutes until it got to the stage that I like. And like I said, every oven is different. You're really gonna have to watch those. Look for the color, look for the bubbling. We had some bubbling here as we took it out and it's settled down now. So now I'm gonna let this cool for about 15, maybe 20 minutes on a rack so there's all around cooling. Cast iron retains heat very well, so you do wanna give it a chance just to cool down a bit before you cut into it and get a slice. I'll see you back here in about 15 or 20 minutes. So we've been cooling for right around 20 minutes now. Let's go ahead and cut into this and have a taste. Oh, look at that. That is steamy. As you can see, my piece of pie kind of exploded as I put it on the plate here, but that's what happens sometimes with pot pies. They don't really want to hold together. There's so much good stuff in the center there that just wants to come out, especially when it's hot. Now you could let this cool down a lot more if you wanted to, but I like it when it's still a little steamy like this. Now another option for the filling for this is, let's say you don't have leftover brisket. Really, you can use just about any meat you want. Let's say you just have a regular old sirloin steak. Brown that up, cook it, put it in here and bake it. But really, if you do have some leftover brisket, I think this is the way to go. Let's get a taste of this brisket first here, with some crust on the bottom. The thing I love about using a brisket that's already been cooked in this is you get that smoke flavor from however you prepared it in the meat that helps transfer into the filling. Really, really good. Now I want to get some of this nice flaky crust, potatoes, anything else in here with some more brisket. Let's go. This is that kind of meal that it's filling with one nice piece of it, but if you offer me a second piece, I'm not turning it down.